RCI's continuing coverage of Le Mans Ultimate Sprint Championship here on Friday evenings. We are here in the land of the rising sun for the very first time in LMU. Fuji with Mr. Fuji-san in the distance in 16 turns of motorsports bliss just outside the city proper. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to LMU Fridays. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Katrina with Ted Edwards behind the cameras as per usual. We've got 20 minutes, just gone 16 minutes left of qualifying here. The LMGT3's up first. Hey, Katrina, konnichiwa. Welcome to Japan.
Yes, Jesse, thank you for having me. I'm excited to see the cars around the track today. After coming back from Monza last week, I'm excited to see what the cars are going to do.
I'm curious what these drivers are going to do. Of course, a new sim. We don't know what the cars are going to handle, but we also don't know how the drivers are going to respond. If they're familiar with iRacing, they'll likely have done many laps here. Of course, the circuit that we're racing today, not my favorite version. This is the Grand Prix circuit. I like the shortcut circuit more, but just to give you a couple of details about Fuji, if you are unfamiliar, we're sort of southwest of Tokyo proper, and just in the distance off of the northwestern horizon, which we don't really see in this sim. It is the great mountain of Fuji in the background. Some few years ago, people were taking photos of a convenience store with the mountain in the background. Don't know what that was about, but neither makes no difference. They host many motorsports festivals here at Fuji over the year. And of course, beyond that, it's a home testing ground for Honda, I do believe, who own the circuit. But today, it's all about WEC racing. 16 turns, 2.8 miles. That's 4.5 miles for you folks in modern measurements. It's a lovely circuit, and it has had a place in motorsports history since, I think, the late 60s. Came into prominence in the early 70s when it had a Daytona-style bank corner in turn number one. Very easy to get that one wrong. Of course, some alterations over the years to make it a safer circuit, and we get the circuit that we have today. Well, the McLarens, Katrina, they were good a week ago. They're looking good here in qualifying today as well.
Yeah, they definitely look like they're putting out strong laps at the minute, with Verstappen setting the lead in first with a 1:39, which is exciting to see. Hopefully we can see some of the other manufacturers battle for that first pole position in the LMGT3s.
Of course, we are watching chat as we always are here on RCI TV. Hello to Jamie. Hello to Malk. Says that Malk said that always love to be in the house of the rising sun. Why is Max driving a McLaren? Yeah, funny that. That's Verstappen, not Verstappen, just to be very clear indeed. He loves that, does Christoph Verstappen. He loves that comparison to Max Verstappen. But slightly different surnames in this case. Apparently he's got it all of Max Verstappen's career. Humorous to me, probably annoying to him. Dan Van Zutphen, second place, joining us in this championship. Sort of a late sign up, but you can do that here on RCI TV, and he is elected to do exactly that. And he is almost at the top of the board. You know, Dan's a talented commentator, right, Katrina? Here with us on RCI TV. Apparently also an incredibly talented race car driver as well, judging by his qualifying prowess.
Yeah, he definitely seems to be setting into the LMU scene pretty well with that lap that he's just done there in the McLaren.
We got Klaus Nyring in third place in a Ferrari, and Vic in fourth in the BMW, and then Lindner in another McLaren. So 3 of the top 5 spots here in LMGT3 qualifying all belong to the McLarens. We have 10 cars. We started the championship in Bahrain with 8 in the class. Now there's up to 10 this week, sort of evening out the two classes. Of course, if you've not been with us prior to today. Here's how it works. 2 different qualifying sessions. LMGT3s get half of the 20-minute session. The hypercars get the other half of the session. And note, unlike ACC or some other sims, you don't start wherever you qualify. Like, for instance, if a hypercar were not to set a lap, they don't start behind the LMGT3s. They do start tail end of their own field, though.
Absolutely, they just sit in the pack before the LMGT3s.
Dan Van Zutphen just goes top of the board. Normally when we praise somebody, they do something unfortunate. The only thing unfortunate about that is for everybody else. Van Zutphen looking to improve upon their already quick time. It was a 39.4. Oh my goodness, and they missed out on it by 19/100ths of a second. Sector 3 playing up. I think they lost that through Panasonic to the line, in fact. So a 39.481, still good enough for provisional pole over Christoph Strepa, 4/10 off behind them. Nyring 5/10, and it gets further on. And this is strange because we haven't seen deltas this wide in a very long time. Keep in mind, we had, was it 8 or 9 of the LMGT3s a week ago. They were all within a second of each other at Monza. Not so here today, looking like.
Yeah, this track definitely seems to be pulling a little bit on certain cars more than others, and people are trying to find a difference in how they're performing on the track. So as we ride on board with Lily Armstrong, who is currently sitting in 8th, just trying to better their qualifying time.
Got to look back on the crash that took them out of the race at Monza. Just a frustrating deal with a hypercar that just sort of forced them off the racetrack and just sent them careening into the wall. And that was the end of what was looking like a promising day. Top 5 pace for sure. Potentially podium pace with a question mark on the end. Could have maybe have been. Wasn't to be. So much contact between the two classes a week ago.
Yeah, we saw a very, very, maybe aggressive is the word to use, like aggressive driving from the 2 different classes in the overtakings that happened. It was very exciting to watch, but at the same time not so exciting because we never want to see anybody take anybody out, which we saw a couple of times last week. So hopefully this week we have a better time and nice clean racing.
Certainly drama-filled was Monza 1 week ago. Sort of a bigger track, easier to get away from one another here today. You'd hope you'd see a reduction in those sort of incidents. Klaus Nyring with an excellent middle sector, quickest of all in their category, goes P2. Has a lot of work to do, though, to catch up to Van Zutphen in the 3rd sector. That entire turn 14 through 16 complex. A little bit slow for Klaus, but everywhere else pretty darn good, just about even in Sector 1. But that is going to do it for qualifying. Klaus, the final car in LMGT3, and Dan Van Zutphen, who was only talking to us moments ago, jumps in the car, brings the visor down, and snags LMGT3 pole. Absolutely incredible job. Malk actually in chat said Dan's a guy who's been beating the pro drivers. We'll be excited to see what he can do. Well, he's got the best starting spot he could hope for. See what he can do in the race.
Yeah, absolutely. As we go out now for the qualifying for the hypercars, so people just sitting their first laps trying to get that first lap down to see what pace we are setting and seeing if people can then contend for that pole position.
This is sort of rarefied airspace here for a lot of these drivers. You may have driven GT3s here in different categories, maybe even GT1s if you go back far enough, but these prototypes here, the only real place that you could experience this in the past was iRacing, and we're not even talking about these prototypes. We're talking about the last generation of sort of prototype cars. These hypercars, this will certainly be the first time that any of these drivers in today's field have driven these cars around this particular racetrack in Anchor, and that's a completely different ball game, a huge learning curve for anybody to completely have to relearn a track, a car, etc. And they're doing it all in one single day. And I mean, they're not. They had a whole week of practice, obviously, and they've signed up for weeks. But my point is, you don't really, you can get all the practice you want, right, Katrina? But until you get into a race, until you turn the wheel in anger, as we like to say, you don't really know. You're not really sure or confident about what you got.
Yeah, absolutely. And having other people on the track with you can make a huge, like, help or hindrance to how your outcome's going to be for the race. So to these people that haven't driven the hypercars around this track, and they have had a practice, like you say, but everything's going to be new. Not only are they going to be thinking about the newness of the track and the LMU, they're also going to have to be thinking about tires and like fuel and things like that. So that's all exciting, and can't wait to see what we make of this track and what we see and who comes out on top.
Certainly is. Zeno Dreesh sets the mark so far, and these times, these gaps looking a little bit more like what we would expect. Zeno Dreesh with the Soul Lamborghini, I believe I'm correct in saying. Provisional pole for Brecha in P2 in the BMW, and Kapslar, who just dominated, was in third. Now P1. Boris trying to get a lap in, but Dreesh, just as quickly as they were deposed, goes back to the top with a 27.894. And dare I say, some of these cars may be getting a little draft off of each other on that long pit straight.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to be trying to find that nice balance between the clean air and the little slipstream. So hopefully we see some of that come into play within the race as well.
Welcome into Dragon and Grim, who's joined us over on YouTube here on RCI TV on your Friday. Wherever you are, folks, wherever you're watching, happy to have you with us here on Friday night LMU. Keep in mind that this simulator is still in a early access state, but you'd be forgiven if at surface value you don't realize that is the case. Of course, so many things going on in the sim, so much variety, but even still, these drivers adopting it early, and I would hazard the guess that, and Katrina, correct me if you think I'm wrong here, a lot of the drivers that adopt a simulator early are the ones that end up being some of the most notable stars or most formidable opponents in the early going for a sim.
Well, I think that's absolutely right, Jesse. I think those that to pick up a sim early and get into the flow of it, have fun and race well, will always be people to look out for.
Let's take you on board a lap if Francisco Fonzo will play along here, and we'll get you very acquainted with this 4.549 kilometer racetrack we know as Fuji Speedway down the main straight here. I'm not entirely sure how long it is, but as an American, I can promise you long, very long. We like our driving straight, and my goodness, it does kink slightly to the left before you get to Dachi. Turn number 1. Turn 2 is a dog leg that continues back to the right here before you head on another little straight. If you get a really bad entry into Dachi, you will be overtaken in turn 3, Coca-Cola curve, and down into 100R. This is a very tricky corner, not so much in a prototype, you just kind of hold it down to the apex. In a GT3 though, you will swing out a little bit wider to shorten it up. Hairpin, turn number 6, down through 7 and 8. Sort of reminiscent of some tracks we have in America where you sort of fall off in elevation. Doesn't look like much, but I promise you it is through 300R into the Dunlop corner and into the sort of chicane here. That is the bane of my human existence. Going over the top of that curb and back over it spun me out more times than I care to imagine. 13 and 14, unnamed, but the top unsighted left-hand turn, blind turn, is Net's corner. Up into turn 16 and the final turn, Panasonic, which is basically another hairpin, an uphill hairpin. You will be braking later. Usually that's going to be a problem spot. It's going to be easy to overtake. It's going to be even easier to invite contact. And once more, through the gears, down the pit straight, and thundering towards the other direction. Getting onto pit lane here, Katrina, also can be a problem. There's a sort of a little mini chicane getting into pit lane as well. You don't want to violate by going over. There's a very little room for error getting into this pit lane because it requires some movement, almost like Le Mans, but not that extreme.
Yeah, so it's going to be a thing that the drivers have to make sure that they are wary of and make sure that they understand how the pit lane access works on this track.
Of course, all the teams will have to come down pit lane at least once here tonight. It doesn't matter what class you're in, you're going to have to come into the pit lane to the attention of your team, and if anything, just to replenish your energy in the car, your electrical energy for your stint. We've seen some mix of strategy of taking tires versus not. We've seen the tires be beneficial, but not quite enough to offset the extra time sat in pit lane. Gottschalk currently leading the hypercar class at 27.495, quarter of a second quicker than Pettick in the 51 Ferrari. Dreesch now down to third in the Lamborghini. Basekis is in fourth place in one of the two Peugeots, and Rodriguez in an Alpine is the top five. So absolute parity inside the top five right now. All those cars covered by about 0.6 of a second.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we get to see some of the BMWs and things just climb their way up the grid to make it a little bit more spicy with the manufacturers. That would be good.
We haven't really seen too much in the way of brand parity in the hypercar class today, though. It looks like it's almost like a great equalizer. Very first race, we saw a couple of Toyotas up front, and then we saw the Ferraris take over. We saw flashes of brilliance from Alpine. But today, it's anybody's guess as Peter Roche goes for a spin. Easy to do that as well. And we'll see just how this ends up. Qualifying time has elapsed. All flying laps will indeed count. Louis Kierton, one of the stars of the hypercar class thus far, he came out absolutely throwing punches in the top five. I would argue punching above their weight class, but considering they've done it 2 or 3 times on the trot now, maybe we sold Louis a little short. Maybe I'll speak for myself. Maybe I sold him a little bit short here, and he's just that good of a driver. Probably, like Dad would say, taught him everything he knew. But Louis Kierton doing an excellent job here at LMU, and Olivier holding it down in ACC as well. You know what they say, Katrina, the family that races together wins together, and maybe we could see a little bit of that. Quickest sectors across the board for Louis there. We'll get them as high as night. There's that pit lane I'm talking about. See how there's almost like a chicane in there? It'll throw you up against that Armco. It could potentially be a problem getting slowed down. Qualifying officially over here. Looks like Gottschalk's going to be your pole sitter in the hypercar class. Here are the results. That 27.399, good enough to offset and take the preferred lane from David Pettick in the 51. It's the Toyota Ferrari front row. Zeno Dreesch, who led most of the early part of the session, will have to settle for the second row with Barnabas Fazekas, Kapslar, Rodriguez, Roche, Fonza, Kierton, Brecha, the top 10. Outside the top 10, Keller, Sirich, Kuzma, Ramos, Cooper, Martin, Shekujev. 17 cars that have taken time. 12 of those cars, we'll call it 13. We'll give Nico the benefit of the doubt here. All within a second. LMGT3 is going to line up like this. RCI's own Dan Van Zutphen will line up on pole position with Klaus Nyring to his outside. A 39.481. Good enough for pole. Christoph Estrepa third. And that's dangerous because that driver has had to come from deep in the field every week thus far. They're already starting in third, so certainly has good race pace, does the 59. We'll see what they can do with an excellent starting spot. Phil Vick in 4th place. Lily Armstrong snuck into the top 5 right at the end of qualifying with another brilliant run from the controller player. Lindner, Buckley, Gill, Sinney, and Beckett will be your top 10 and only 10 LMGT3 cars. Well, I believe we have championship standings for the very first time in LMU history, provided by one Ted Edwards. Here's how they have stacked up after 2 rounds. Adam Kapslar has 80 points over Michelle Menez Rodriguez with 58, tied with Peter Roche for 2nd place. Currently, tiebreaker would go to Rodriguez. I believe that's going to be based on finishes. Actually, they look like they're dead tied, so I'm not sure how they would settle that between the 2 Alpines, but doesn't matter anyway yet. Louis Kierton off of 2 great finishes thus far. 4th place, David Pettick in 5th. Sirich Gottschalk, Fazekiss, Badowski, Cooper, Fonza, and Octane, the top 12 in Hypercar. Second page from 13th to 22nd, Ramos, Roscom, Kuzma, Brecha, Martins, Derish, Shekershev, Huel, McDonger, who I believe is retired from the championship, along with Nicholas Keller. To absolutely nobody's surprise, in LMGT3, it's the comeback kid himself, Christoph Strepe, who has taken their McLaren to the top. They haven't won a race. They haven't had to. 2 second-place finishes, the consistency, and sometimes coming from deep in the field. I think they started like 8th or 9th or something. I think it was like 7th or 8th, actually. At Bahrain, they came from 5th or so a week ago to finish in P2. Had a little help with some penalties, though, or some incidents, rather. But Nears makes no difference. Consistency for Verstappen, 70 points to Grant Willemont, 63, has them in the championship lead after 2 rounds. Phil Vick in 3rd, right behind them, very much alive in this champ. 10 off of Verstappen, and even closer to Willemont in 3rd place. Nyring and Buckley make up the rest of your top 5, and just look how close some of these points totals are. You've got Lindner and you've got Ryan Gill and Cotton, who are tied at 20 apiece down there with, I believe that's going to be Lily Armstrong in 9th place. Behind them, Beckett, Sinney, Van Zutphen, who has just joined, and Malcolm. Sinney has not just joined, but they have 2 DNFs. Matt Malcolm, who is here on a part-time basis, and Van Zutphen, who's joined us today, all very close. Kapslar running away with it a little bit in Hypercar. Anybody's game, though, really, in LMGT3 at this stage. Sitting on the grid, getting ready to go green here at Fuji. Just enough time to welcome you all in. Miguel Martins has joined us. Hello. Miguel wondering where Grim's been. Grim's been winning races. Grim's not gone anywhere. He's been doing what Grim does, and that's embarrass people on the racetrack. That's why I don't get on the racetrack with him, because I don't want to be embarrassed. I will openly admit that he's better than me. But then again, 95% of other people, whether they'll admit it or not, also the same case. Some 30 drivers plus ready to do battle. 1 hour, and we're already green here. The Hypercar class, 3 abreast, just about down the front straight. Not uncommon at all. You could squeeze about 4 or 5 of them in there if you dared. Some driver has a penalty here early. They were out of position on the start. Contact between Dries and one of the Alpines, though. The Toyota has got away incredibly cleanly, and the Ferrari defensive down into turn number 3 for the very first time. And they're over the curb, but no dramas there as they all thunder into 100R.
Yeah, it looks like a great start from the person out the front in the Toyota. As we continue to go around the track as you can see, they're pulling quite a lead away from the rest of the pack at the moment.
They were stuck 2 and 3 wide behind them, and that's not what you want to do. These hypercars are, if you're not on, it's like a Formula car almost. If you're not on the line, you are in trouble. They are 3 wide in the chicane behind them. One of the Porsches, the Porsche Penske's off. The leader's crashed. The leader of the race has crashed off of the racetrack. They didn't make it up the hill, and they've got it re-going, but he's fallen way behind. He may be just outside the top 10 look, and I believe... was the Ferrari impacted as well? No, he wasn't. They are clear of the field, but Daniel Gottschalk has stacked it all by himself on the opening lap of the race. That happened in turn 13. Going up the hill, the car unloaded, easy to slip the tires, and Gottschalk in trouble early.
Now in the middle of the pack, and I think he's probably hoping that he can make some places back after that slight mistake as we see him go in the inside there. Very exciting to see, very, very strange. Maybe just pushing a little bit too hard. Currently a yellow flag out on the track somewhere.
I think that's going to be turn 1. I would assume one of the LMGT3s was involved in an incident up there. I'm curious if Gottschalk had contact with anybody. He was Broadway. Oh my goodness. Somehow got that car stopped there in turn 14 and 15. But I'm curious if he had contact with somebody, or somebody had contact with him rather. That is an unsighted turn, is turn 13. You're going uphill, climbing a couple of stories up, and to the right, there's a huge A-pillar there in these cars, in most of these cars anyway, and it would be almost impossible to see, and he was set broadside there. Very dangerous, very scary moment that has completely changed the complexion of this race.
Yeah, absolutely. It means that now Pettit has taken the first place with Rodriguez behind him. Currently on board with Peter Roche as he tries to get down the inside of the Toyota. We've got Shack, who seems to be... maybe they do have damage, maybe they're holding damage at the minute. Seems to be just struggling a little bit for that pace, but fighting back with Peter Roche, seeing if he can get that place back. Goes very wide in that corner, and still behind Peter as we go down this straight into.
Pettit leads in the number 51 Ferrari, Rodriguez P2, Dreesch in third, Facekiss, Roche the top 5, Gottschalk and Kapslar now, 2 drivers who have dominated at different points in this championship, both of them outside the top 5. The field in control of Pettit and Rodriguez, but Pettit has a humongous lead already, 3.6 seconds and going up, trending in the right direction if you're the driver of the number 51 Ferrari. Ryan Gill has already been down the pit lane, and I think that was the car that we were told had the penalty on the initial start for being out of position. So Ryan Gill has just had, for the 3rd week in a row, the absolute worst luck anyone could ever have here. 3 weeks on the trot, some abnormal issue has caused them to be last or next to last.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we see him struggling. Hopefully he can get back out on the track and just get some laps in and see if he can climb back up to the back of the pack.
Dan Van Zutphen, we can't allow to be lost in all of this. Dan Van Zutphen has led the entire way in LMGT3. Klaus Sneyring has given chase, but nothing doing there. Verstappen in 3rd. Lily Armstrong up to 4th place, continuing their excellent run. And somehow, Cine, let's talk about drivers that have not had any luck. That Corvette, that 81 Corvette's definitely one of those, but inside the top 5 right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we can see them all push each other and, you know, go for them spots on the racetrack. It'll be good to see if we can see Cine make up some places. It looks like that he's just lost out to Phil Bick in the number the 5th spot for the GT3s.
Yeah, that's the commentator's curse that I'm used to here as he's continuing to be swamped here. Might lose another position to McLaren, and in fact does. He could lose even more, and he will do, unfortunately, as well. As quickly as he was 5th, down to 8th, still fighting for it, heading up to the north, or the, I should actually say the most western part of the circuit here. Oh, my goodness, over the curb, and we got to remind everyone at home, if it is your first time watching a LMU race, it's important to understand that unlike ACC, it's not an automatic warning. You get sort of warning points based on how severe the track cut is. So it literally could be anything. It's usually decimal points. If it's severe enough, you get full points. You acquire enough sort of points in the same way, you end up having to come down pit lane. So in a way, it's the same as ACC if you're familiar with that, except that it's not nearly as black and white. You gain a little advantage. You might get 0.1 or 0.2 of a track limit warning penalty, but those all add up as the looking like the 99 of Martins here is under fire. Up the inside is Kuzma. Kuzma's trying to hold the door open. The number 6 of Louis Kierton wants to get on that elevator, and I suspect he will do around the outside, and you love to see that space afforded a little bit too wide off of the marbles. Louis Kierton's going to end up losing a spot there themselves. Nico Kuzma in the battle here, as all of these cars, starting with the BMW of Breccia, are they coming into pit lane, or are they trying to break the draft? They're trying to break the draft. Breccia leading Kierton, Kuzma, Martins, and Ramos all in a line here until they pull out to try and make a pass down into turn number 1. Tight and tidy line for the 99 of Martins. Can't do it. I do apologize. Breccia and Kierton are in front of this group. This is Kuzma, Martins, Ramos, and Siric in this group. I was sold a dummy because there's a BMW and a Porsche, and there's a BMW and a Porsche in this group, and I just naturally assumed that was what we were looking at because I can't count. Back to you, Katrina.
Oh yeah, fair enough. I can't count either, Jesse. You're not alone there. It's really exciting to see them all like so close to each other on the track, though, just fighting, waiting for them. You know, them little mistakes like slightly wide or, you know, slightly too far on the curve can just put you out just a little bit, and then obviously car behind just takes that position on the track away from you. So it's all very exciting to see.
What I like to see is everyone sort of getting along here. Yeah, they're racing each other incredibly hard, I can promise you that. But they're doing it largely respectfully. They're having a go at each other, but they're not going too far, and you love to see it. This is a racetrack, Fuji Speedway, that sort of allows you room to maneuver and avoid incident if things go a bit wrong. But even still, they seem to be doing a pretty good job of it. Mike Redford said this is the first LMU race they've watched from a spectator view, loving the camera angles, and our broadcaster Ted Edwards kind of explained that he's tweaked the angles a little bit as well to give a wider view. And I think that helps the spectator. It helps us up here in the booth because, folks, if you don't know, we see the same thing you see at home. The only difference is that we're trying to keep up with things going on behind the scenes as well. So kind of helps us out there. But new sim, even the broadcast team has to learn new tricks. And certainly Ted Edwards rising to that occasion. Hello to Bart over in the Twitch chat as well. Good evening to you. And good evening to everyone. Hope you're well.
Oh, it looks like we've just seen Gottschalk off the track there in the background. I think that's who that was. So maybe he's struggling a little bit.
Well, we got a request from the Twitch chat. Somebody wants Big would like some M4 onboards. And I mean, who are we to deny you such a request. So how about Ted Edwards picks his favorite car, and I mean my favorite as well, the Lily Armstrong BMW. We're going to take you on board. Katrina and I are going to stop talking for a moment, and we're going to let you enjoy the sights and the sounds of the BMW Team WRT Lily Armstrong BMW. Well, there you have it. The sights and the sounds here from Fuji here on RCI Fridays LMU Sprint Series and round number 3 of that championship. It started off a bit more auspicious than it had done in the past. Monza was absolute chaos from the drop of the green flag, and well, we have had the hypercar pole sitter spin earlier on, of course, but beyond that, it has been a pretty good race, all things considered. A lot of side-by-side action, not nearly as many incidents. There's one Ferrari in the LMGT3 field that has significant damage that we saw. We didn't see exactly what caused it, but considering there was on lap number 2, well, that's exactly what I get for opening my fat mouth.
Yeah, it looks like Nick Cooper's made a bit of a mistake here, Jesse, to be honest.
Yeah, he certainly has done. Nick Cooper puts the number 50 AF Corsa Ferrari hypercar into the sand all the way to the wall, and that is, I'm not an engineer, but if I were, I'd say that's significant steering rack damage.
Yeah, it definitely looks like they've got significant damage. Like you said about the damage model in LMU, it's not always the most forgiving. It definitely looks like they've had a big little incident. That doesn't make sense, but you know what I mean.
Hey, you're talking to the guy who invented light medium rain. So okay, I'm willing to believe it. All right, so. But I mean, it's not your fault that you guys don't understand light, medium rain. You come from a country where either the rain isn't light, medium, or heavy. It's just on or off. So I understand. It's a little bit different. So come from different places just a little bit. Adam Kapslar, who did not qualify for this race particularly well, trying to find a spot inside the top 5, had it for just a moment and fell back outside of it. Felipe Brecha putting up a pretty decent fight here. As it's going to be contact coming into the chicane. Everyone trying to navigate GTLM or LMGT3 traffic rather, and they're going to split them both ways. The 155 just doing everything they can just to not be in a horrible situation, and eventually gets it settled out there as everybody is able to work their way through, but Kapslar unable to convert that position and get by Brecha, who holds on for the time being.
Jesse, just to let you know that Andy is coming to the chat and said Nick Cooper's game had a crash briefly, so that was how he's picked up that damage and that's been out there.
Right. So when LMU, well, when any sim freezes, but it's the same way in LMU. Francisco Fonza, by the way, also in the pit lane in the garage. In fact, I'm pretty sure that was illustrating there. But excellently spotted by you. I didn't quite catch that, but. Thank you to Andy in chat for pointing out the Nick Cooper's game crash briefly. So basically, when it freezes like that, it freezes for you, but in the sim, your car's still moving. You don't actually freeze. You can't do anything. And by the time it's recovered or caught up, if you will, you're in a barrier somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Like blink and you'll miss it kind of situation, which is really unfortunate for the drivers on the track.
Horrible moment there. Of course, we've seen significant teething issues with attrition and retirements in these races. It was particularly bad 1 week ago at Monza for whatever reason. There were cars that were in the garage because of incidents, but also because of mechanical and electrical failure. Ryan Gill had probably the weirdest one of them all. They had a sort of electrical failure, as we'll call it. Their internet was playing up, and that was very bizarre. That's not the sim's fault necessarily, of course, but even still, just a rash of strange incidents, and that carrying over into today with Cooper. 130 seconds of damage, Andy says, on that Nick Cooper car. It's pretty standard for an RF-based sim, but even still, that is a long time sedentary in pit lane. I've gotten, I think, 4.5 minutes of damage in RF2 before, which, you know, you may or may not know, puts you a lap down at Le Mans, is how long that is.
Yes, that's a long time, to be fair. Good to see that he's going to try and repair and come back out, though. That's what I'm seeing from this. It's not DNF'd yet, so... and here we see him come back out on the track.
Nick Cooper continuing on. Just talked about the attrition rate a week ago. Cooper not throwing in the towel here. Bonza has done that, by the way. The number 7 Toyota Gazoo hypercar has thrown in the towel. So one of the number 7s, not your pole sitter, remember, but one of the number 7 Gazoo Toyotas has called it quits. Don't know exactly why or what has happened to that particular car, but they are the only retirement. Cooper has rejoined us, and they may be 2 laps down, but again, if it happened to them, it can happen to anyone. Van Zutphen continues to lead. Verstappen has got around Klaus Nyring for 2nd place. Katrina, I gotta ask you, if you're Christoph Verstappen and you finish 2nd every single week, are you annoyed that you can't win one, or are you happy that you're getting beat by one person and it's a different person, it feels like, every week?
Good question. I think it would be motivation. Like, I don't think I'd be annoyed. I think I'd be motivated to think about, like, what they're doing differently on the track to what I'm doing. I'd be analysing, you know, tyres and when they pitted and, you know, everything, to see if I could make up that place to maybe win.
Let me ask you this way, Boris Shekhajov in the pit lane. That Porsche Penske number 6 is in the garage. That's going to be a retirement as well, so that'll be another position for Cooper right there. That's why you don't give up even in the event of an incident. Also, too, you can turn this into sort of something of a test session. I've just noticed it's clouding over a bit, and that's slightly worrying because there is the chance of weather. We didn't talk about that, but it is Japan. There's always a chance of rain. You'd be familiar with that, Katrina, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we get a lot of rain over here in the UK, to be fair, so driving in the rain is something...
250 some days a year, isn't it? Something like that?
Yeah, that is probably true. It rains a lot, but you're right, it can make the difference between the drivers here. Now, I'm guessing that a lot of these have practiced in both the wet and the dry, but we'll see maybe a change of tyres and stuff come into play, which will mean maybe earlier pit stops than what we've seen the past couple of weeks.
Interesting question coming in. Bart in Twitch chat has asked, not much interested in LMU, but they seem to be curious how the yellow flags are handled. I believe they're real. I believe that if you overtake somebody in a waved yellow flag zone, because it works in sectors, of course, or sections, if you overtake somebody, you get told to give the position back or face a penalty, and it starts like a countdown timer. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. And if it isn't, that's how it's supposed to work anyway, or at least it did in other sims powered by this motor. So it isn't a visual thing. It should be quite literal. The penalties in LMU or the penalties in R Factor 2 are absolutely lethal. They're brutal. So if you're out of position, if you overtake off track, et cetera, and so forth, you're going to get told, no, that's not on. So if that's implemented in LMU yet, we'll learn that all together, I think, is what's going to go on there. Fonza's joined us in YouTube chat to say it's a forced DNF, got destroyed by Cooper's Ferrari in turn 1, tried to fix the car, but was already 2 laps down. So there you go. Had wing suspension damage and the works on Fonza's car. So that car is going to be retired based on critical damage to that Gazoo Racing Toyota.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about damage, I think we also saw Ellis Buckley come into the pit not so long ago, who looked like that they had damage from the starting couple of laps as well. So they look like they've repaired and they've come back on track. Currently 25th.
Well, there you go. Maciej Sirek for Porsche Penske into the pit lane, and I believe, knock on wood, that this is a scheduled pit stop for them, and nothing else amiss for Sirek here. Up on the jacks and down and gone. A little bit longer stop there. That could have been damage, but it must have not been too much. That might have just been a tire change that they did there. Now, whether they meant to do that or not, because very iRacing-like, the box rechecks itself when you come into the pit lane. If you've unchecked it, it doesn't stay that way between sessions. It'll recheck itself. 3 wide down into turn 1, make it 4 wide with the LMGT3. BMW is going to go wide. Adam Kapslar is going to go up to 4th. Breccia is going to end up losing out on a spot that he had taken over. The AF Corsa Ferrari has taken 4th and is trying to get out of Dodge right now. They're halfway back to Osaka.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just going to try and be putting the pace down, getting away from the traffic behind them. So we see Brescia just trying to close that gap towards Castwell, just trying for that 4th place.
I got to applaud Fonz's attitude here about the incident. He has all the right in the world to be upset. And instead, it happens. It's part of racing. It is. It's the unfortunate part. It's the ugly part. But what is important is the way you go about it. And Fonza, I love that attitude. And also, thank you for coming in and letting us know exactly what happened. We appreciate that. We appreciate all of our drivers that come in, or friends and family, or viewers, if they stream, of course, coming in and letting us know, hey, this is what happened, in case you didn't know. We very much appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you have to remember, that this is a race series, Jesse, so even if, you know, the race doesn't go well this week, there's always next week to come back and get back on the track and have fun and race, and hopefully have a better race than Fonza had today.
Exactly. Back to my question. I want to rephrase it to you. I want to try this again. Would you gladly accept a championship trophy in 8 weeks, having never won a race and finishing second in every single race? Or would you trade the championship for winning about 3 or 4 of the 8 races? What would you rather have?
Well, they say consistency is key, right? So I think I would take the consistently being, you know, second, third, you know, doing well every week, like keeping it on the track, not having any issues, you know, not having to retire or anything like that. I think I would take that over the win. What about yourself, Jesse?
Well, I have a history of coming second anyway, so I'm pretty happy with that. I would take the championship trophy and be proud of that. Quality over quantity, that sort of thing, right? So I'd rather have the big trophy rather than 4 smaller ones. I'll always take the bigger trophy. I don't know what that says about me. I'm sure something. Whichever one's shinier, I don't care. Christopher Streiper is as close as he's been. He's never been too far from Dan Van Zutphen, which is the orange McLaren in front. And these two, they were first and third to start with. Verstappen has dispensed of the Ferrari and is now on the back of young Van Zutphen. And this is going to be interesting because these two drivers here, there could be a lot of Dutch swear words if they have contact between the two of them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to see that the leader of the GT3s hasn't just pulled away, and they're being able to be contended by Verstappen.
Well, it's another week here in LMGT3 where the McLarens are dominant. We've got 3 of the top 4 of them are McLarens, but the weird thing is that they're different McLarens. So that tells you the car is strong, but the driver roster is strong as well. Confirmed, not a fluke. So we'll see how that continues on. For right now, Verstappen hunting down Van Zutphen, but not really worried. Pulled away, though, in Sector 3, did Don, over Chris. So that's got to be pretty good. Lost out in Sectors 1 and 2 quite mightily, but made all of it back up in that final sector, sort of a trade-off. But not bad. Very wide there from Van Zutphen. I think he was expecting that Ferrari to be closer than it was, and instead sort of left the door open, and that allowed Verstappen to get right back to him here. The unfortunate part through 100R, this whole section, no real way to get by them here.
No, absolutely. It's just a bit of a follow my leader until we get into the racetrack where you can, contend and overtake. But it looks like there's just a little bit of space where the hypercars have come through the traffic, and hopefully we see them close the gap back up, I think.
Bart's joined us again in chat to say, Jesse, love from France. Well, we, you know what? Love from America and Britain. I'll speak for them. I don't care. I were them at one point, right? That's how it works, right?
Yeah.
That's English. That's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
We're all family here is what I'm trying to say. Just about halfway in today's 60-minute race. Big has asked in Twitch chat, is there a safety car mechanic actually implemented in LMU? Yes, there is. We've seen it. If you watch our very first LMU broadcast from December last year, there was a safety car deployment in that race, I'm pretty sure. Wasn't there? Oh, wait, no, that's iRacing. I do apologize. I'm thinking of iRacing. There was a safety car deployment in our iRacing, one of our iRacing races last year. As far as I know, there is no safety car in LMU yet, and yet being the operative word. I do beg pardon. I was confusing iRacing from the end of last year. Yeah, we're playing with the graphics here. If you look at the sort of middle left top corner of the screen, you'll see that there's a safety car graphic. There's not a safety car deployed. Our broadcaster, Ted Edwards, is merely showing you that there are graphics for it, but it appears to not be fully implemented yet. I was misrecalling a Nürburgring race in iRacing where there was a full safety car deployment out of absolutely nowhere. But no, not an LMU yet, but they have everything ready for it to go, other than it actually just being implemented as you asked. So no, but maybe soon, TM. There is a safety car at the end of pit lane, I'm pretty sure, though. But for the sim to function, from my if I go back all the way to my modding days of this engine, the sim has to have a safety car there for the sim to for the track to even load up. So obviously there has to be a safety car there, but it doesn't do anything as of yet, other than the pace lap.
But it's actually to see, to be fair, once they do implement it.
I wonder if you can hit it. And that may sound weird to some of you. If you don't race with a safety car often, that doesn't make any sense to you. But if you're the leader, it is a little bit of a tradition, at least where I'm from, this side of the world, to go touch the pace car, not in an aggressive way. It's good luck to rub the pace car a little bit, because in America the pace car is typically driven by a famous person. They're famous for racing or whatnot. You'll be familiar with that in F1. Sometimes there's honorary pace car drivers or other former Formula One drivers. You can't rub the pace car in Formula One, but in racing, in tin top racing, you absolutely can, and it's sort of a tradition. I'd love to. I'd love for Ted to be driving that car.
Just so you can give it a little boop.
Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't really? I mean, intrusive thoughts winning and whatnot. Pettit continues to be leading the race. The gap's coming down, though, folks. Dreesh is catching in the 63 Lamborghini at a really good clip. That was a 2.8 second. No, excuse me, I'm wrong. That was a 4-second gap at one point earlier on. It is now down under a second. Pettit to Dreesh, first to second in Hypercar. Facekiss not far behind either in the 94 Total Peugeot. Capslaw in fourth, and Brecha, off of the racetrack is Louis Kierton there. He had to hang on to that bad boy in 100R, coming through the Coca-Cola curve. Does just about so. Will give up the spot to Peter Roche, though, in the 36 Alpine. But that entire lead group coming back together. Brecha, who was under fire for a large part of the sort of first third of the race, has settled into fifth and is catching the 83 Ferrari of Capslaw. Facekiss is catching Dreesh and Pettit, and if they get racing, that Peugeot is going to be there almost instantaneously on the scene, as Shekajev and Fonza have retired. We talked about them earlier. Cooper is a lap or so down, but has returned to the race. Everybody else, for the time being, still on the lead lap, and only one car that I'm aware of, and that being Sirich, that has taken its actual pit stop. All the hypercars, all the LMGT3s have to do a pit stop today.
Yeah, absolutely. With 26 minutes left of this race, it will be good to see when they're going to come in and get their tyres, not their tyres, their pit stop done. Obviously, in the last couple of weeks, we've seen it go down to the last, 15 to 10 minutes of the race remaining before they come in. But Jess, my question to you is, the tyres and the weather. Do you think we're going to see rain today? Do you think that rain is going to be on the forecast for the last half of this race?
Well, I learned a long time ago not to trust the weather in this part of the world. Again, another concept that you might be familiar with. Always, you keep the brolly in the car, don't you? You actually have two. You have one in the entry doorway to the house, and you have one in the car. And that's what you do in Japan. That's what you do in the UK. Not so much where I'm from. We just sort of accept it. What's that old saying? Some days you just get rained on. But in more civilized parts of the world, you have a brolly, and I wouldn't bet against it. I know that it has rained in the past here in practice. There's a potential of it. We didn't know quite the percentage. Was it 50-50? Was it a little bit less, as the Ferrari, who was damaged earlier, is parked off of the racetrack into turn number 1. Ellis Buckley indeed well spotted.
Looks like a DNF, Jesse.
It does. No idea exactly what happened to Buckley there. They look like they just came to a halt. It didn't look like that car had contact with anything else. So you wonder if that's a mechanical retirement. But will it rain? I don't know. We definitely started under sort of partly cloudy skies. It's completely overcast. There's a haze over the hills. Visibility has been reduced. The lights on the cars are very much visible on the racetrack now. And it's not because it's getting dark per se. I mean, it is getting dark, but it's not because the sun's going down. I would worry about this. And if I'm a driver out there on track, I'm trying to stretch this as far as I need to and not come in early here. Nobody coming down pit lane. We saw a mix of strategy. We saw a mix of strategy in the previous couple of weeks. Not so much today. Everyone's afraid of what the weather might do.
Yeah, we don't want to lose out time if you go in at this point for tyres, or your pit stop and you don't take tyres, and then you have to come back in and take tyres if it does turn to rain. Obviously all of these drivers are worried about having to go down the pit lane twice and losing extra time. So if you could stay out and you can keep it on the track and everything's okay, and then you just need to top up for your fuel and your energy, then obviously that makes sense to these drivers. So I can't say personally that I think we'll see them come in anytime soon, unless we do happen to see rain.
Hey, finally some math that I can do. Coming down the pit lane once is quicker than coming down the pit lane twice. Shocking, I know.
That is some great math.
I thank you. Yeah, I've been working on it. But I am quite curious how far they can continue to go about this. Pettit and Fazekas, the top two. Kapslar down to third. And looks like Brecha is trying to get around Kapslar here, and this is exactly what we're seeing here. Brecha has completed it up to P3 in the number 15 BMW. Kapslar down to fourth. So Kapslar either had an incident, certainly would have had to have. Brecha was 4 or 5 seconds behind Fazekas earlier on. So was that contact between Barnabas Fazekas and Adam Kapslar? I don't know, but they've lost more than 5 seconds is what I'm getting at. Oh, excuse me, that was Dreesh. That was Dreesh that was in P2. So something certainly has happened. I was getting Kapslar and Dreesh confused. That was Zeno Dreesh who was running down Pettit. Something's definitely happened to Zeno Dreesh as they're down in 5th place. Was that a self spin, or was it contact? Who knows? Fazekas, who was third, now up to second. Brecha has fault and passed Kapslar. For the first time today, we check in with our tire assignment here. M stands for medium. H stands for hard. And if you look at Nicholas Keller in the 93 Peugeot, they have at least one hard tire on that car, and I would hazard the guess that it's the front left tire again.
Yeah, we saw a lot of that last week, Jesse, with at Monza, with them having one or two different tires on the front of their cars. So it looks like Keller has taken that same trick this week. It seems to be the only one, which is interesting to see.
Welcome in, Tim Peck. Welcome to LMU, Tim Peck. If this may be the first time you're seeing the sim ran, we miss you. Glad to have you with us here this evening, though. Fazekas becomes our third different leader tonight, overtaking Pettit, who has led the majority of the way in the 51A, of course, of Ferrari. Fazekas takes the 94 Peugeot into the lead, and if Peugeot's listening out there in real life, that's how you do it. Willie Armstrong into the pit lane to the attention of their team, getting some service done. This is a routine pit stop. When I said earlier that all the teams had to pit, don't misunderstand that there is a mandatory pit stop. They are electronically limited, which requires them to make a pit stop. Nobody can make it on virtual energy in this race in either class. So there's no required pit stop, except that it is required because nobody can make it on one run of virtual energy. Everyone has to come down. Armstrong has come in hoping to undercut some of the competition inside the top 5. That's a great strategy as long as the rain holds off.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense to try and get in there before the rest do, try and get back out and set some decent lap times. But I wonder if the rain will hold off for Armstrong to be able to do that. So currently we have still got FaZe Kiss in the lead, with Pettit behind him trying to fight back for that #1 spot that he had hold of earlier, but we saw FaZe Kiss take it away from him.
Our broadcaster Ted pointed out something interesting. He's noticing the cars are slipping around. We saw that the previous couple of weeks. It is hard to determine if maybe, I mean, the track's not gotten moisture. Ooh, huge lock up there by the 7. Just about gets away with it, getting around the LMGT3 BMW. It might be sort of a cooler track condition now without the sun beating on it. We've also seen this every week thus far because the tires wear out, and I have been told that these cars, regardless of class, become a little bit of a handful on worn tires, so that might also be a part of it. Fuji is a track known for putting high load through the tires. Ooh, huge snap right there to illustrate by Adam.
Yeah, maybe we are just seeing a little bit of tyre wear come into play, and that's causing these just slightly little slips, which can become bigger slips. So, you know, each driver probably being aware, but still wanting to make sure that they're not being undone if they come into the pits too early. So definitely something to keep hold of. But again, would you prefer to come in early and have fresh tyres and not make a mistake, or pick up damage if you do make a mistake? So it's definitely something that you have to think about when you're in the car and on the track.
Unlike iRacing, there is no radar. The drivers look up at the sky, and if you're an engineer on pit lane, you do what they used to do in the 70s before any of that technology was readily available in a pit lane. And you step out from under the awning and you look up, and it's as simple as that. That's what they used to do in Formula One. They used to just feel for it, and if you felt your hand got wet, it's raining. Of course, nowadays, all the modern technology, and including, of course, in iRacing, you've got the built-in radar system. Nothing doing here in LMU. Look up at the sky and make up your own mind. Your windscreen will know it's raining first, if it is indeed going to happen. Hasn't done anything yet. Been 20 minutes here with the full cloud condition and no rain, as Miguel Martins has brought the Proton Competition 99 Porsche into a wall.
Looks like his whole thing damaged.
Yes, it is. Well, we've seen Cooper has had damage where it's bent the suspension to the right. Miguel Martins is bent to the left, and I think he clipped the. I think he clipped the barrier that does not move, and he's damaged it more. That car, I have eaten crabs that didn't walk quite that badly.
Yeah, it definitely looks like they're just trying to get it back to the pit lane instead of...
Well, he's going to get there, but that is not a fun drive back, but it does illustrate the damage model incredibly well in my mind. Look at that. That car is completely... He's trying to speed up, and he can't do it because he's losing all... Oh man, if that car spins out, that is going to be very dangerous on the start-finish straight, but I think he might just get that car back. But basically what's happened is one end or one half of that car is, we call them tie rods, but they're really just steering rods that is just completely broken, and you have to steer the opposite way, Lightning McQueen style. You going... what is that? You going hard enough left, you turn right, or something like that is what they say. It's kind of what you're doing there, only at very low speeds. So control arm, tie rod, whatever you call it, broken on that car. Did get that thing to pit lane, though, and illustrated the damage model quite nicely. All it takes is a medium tap, and you can break some of the control arms on these cars. Not a very forgiving damage model. It really tests your ability to drive in a safe and controlled manner.
Jesse, just in from Ellis Buckley, who said he had PC issues tonight and he got stuck in second gear and he couldn't change out of second gear.
Oh.
That would be the reason for that retirement.
Interesting. Nico Kuzma in and out of pit lane in the WRT BMW in the hypercar class. More and more cars bailing on the strategy here. Actually, I don't think they've had to bail on anything. I think they're just making their hedging their bets more than anything else. Miguel Martins joins us from the pit lane, says that was a fun in lap. It looked incredibly fun. Sarcasm heavily implied.
Yeah, with 30 minutes left, I think we're going to see an influx of cars coming into the pits, Jesse. Very quick stop there from Cine.
Yeah, Piero Cini was down and gone. Just obviously no changes to that car, no damage changed. So easy to forget to unselect damage. For anyone who plays iRacing, you'll be familiar with that. But no issues on that Corvette, the 81 down and gone. The only thing is they missed their pit box a little bit. Had to be moved back into position quite significantly. But other than that, still really quick indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. Back on the track in 8th position at the minute. So in pass, that is. Not obviously 8th on the track.
Oh, dangerous moments here. This is not where Cini wanted to be in the middle of a hypercar fight, but that is where he finds himself.
Yeah, slows him up for the car behind, which is Lily Armstrong, to catch up just that little bit.
It's been a quiet race here in the LMGT3 field, and they will prefer it that way. I think pretty much everybody. Van Zutphen was able to withstand a charge from Verstappen in the middle part of the race. Now 2.2 seconds behind is Christoph. Klaus Nyring, who qualified, I believe, second, down to third, but not really in a threat to fall any further behind. Phil Vick's up to fourth place. It is some 21 seconds behind the top three. Ryan Gill is up to fifth, and despite coming in incredibly early there, oh yeah, they're gonna have to make another stop though, aren't they? Unless they came in. Gill was the car that got the penalty on the start, being out of position or something like that. We're about to learn something interesting, Katrina. They're not required to come down pit lane by rule, but they have to refill the virtual energy. Do you have to stop in your box to do that, or does passing through recharge the virtual energy? We'll know, because if Ryan Gill doesn't have to come down pit lane, that pass-through counts as restoring virtual energy. I don't think it works like that, but just like everything else, I'm probably wrong. Ask my wife.
I think you make a fair point, and I think it will change maybe the next couple of races if we see the fact that they only have to come down the lane and not actually have to stop in the box.
I doubt that's the case, but it is interesting if the act of serving a penalty manipulates that in some way, in the same way that a driver at the end of the 24 hours of Spa or something like that will trundle down the pit lane at the end. It happens at Daytona too as well, in fact, where they don't actually need fuel or anything, but to reset their stint timer, they'll come down the pit lane. Does the virtual energy work that way, or does the car have to be up on jacks before it gives you another stint's worth of virtual energy? Again, like I said, we're all about to learn that together, ladies and gentlemen, and others at home.
We see Nicholas Keller come in for their pit stop in the Peugeot.
Miguel Martins says that driving that car back into pit lane was a bit like drifting in slow motion. I've driven in icy parking lots where that's also been true. I can commiserate. Dan Van Zutphen pits out of the lead in LMGT3 and somehow has found the pit box with the one camera that doesn't work here at Fuji Speedway. Nice dirt
also
texture,
came
though.
in.
Well spotted indeed. Klaus Nyring also in top 3, all down and gone on pit lane. No issues there. And the marshal at the end of pit lane very nicely pointing them the way towards the exit back onto the racetrack, just in case they get lost.
I wonder if they had all planned to pit, or if it was just to kind of follow the leader kind of situation, like they just had decided once the leader was in that they would also come in, or whether it was like they'd already planned to come in around the 9-8 minute mark.
And the worst part is, that's a good question, but the worst part is you can't even ask them, because if you ask them, you know, what you're going to do, they may lie and say, oh yeah, it was always my plan to pit on this exact lap at this time. But nah, I think honestly, once Van Zutphen committed to coming in, I think Verstappen saw that, went, well, I don't want him to get an undercut on me and maybe get outside of a sort of a respectable drafting range. And of course, added to that, you could probably argue Klaus Nyring said, yeah, now's as good a time as any. We're all in the same box anyway, so it doesn't really particularly matter. Nico Almos in and out of pit lane for the team Jota Porsche. Rejoins in front of the number 50, and they will continue their fight down for about, I think they'll end up being about 12th or 13th. By the time it's all said and done, another difference, if you're used to watching ACC, the cars do not ghost in the pit lane. We saw that be a problem in the last couple of weeks, cars smacking into each other in pit lane, not realizing that they're never ghosted.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, it's a new sim, and if you are used to ACC and stuff, you maybe not to know. But we do see Verstappen come back in for another pit, so I wonder if there was.
Well, I can't tell you what Verstappen is in pit lane for. Either obviously they didn't select something in their pit stop that has required them to come back down pit lane. But Ryan Gill, down and gone, that is a refilling of the virtual energy on the number 31 WRT BMW. So that pretty much answers it. Coming down pit lane, a pass-through penalty, in effect, does not count for feeling virtual energy. You have to be up on the jacks. I suspected it was the same, and it is. You saw the BMW in the background get shifted out Le Mans style. That's because of where their pit box is and where the other cars were around them. I know it looked a bit awkward, but that is one of the features of the sim. It keeps you from being boxed in behind other cars. David Beckett, though, back out on the racetrack. I have no idea what happened with Verstappen outside of they were reacting to Van Zutphen coming into pit lane and had selected an option that did not get them to the end of this race somehow.
Yeah, maybe we saw the whole, not quite putting enough in or not ticking something happening. But which is a shame, really, because they were both out there and quite close on time with the last remainder of 8 minutes. Verstappen could have done something.
This man has been utterly dominant here today. We've seen flashes of brilliance from Van Zutphen in the past, winning races in ACC, competing at a high level. But today, he has been on another level, just basically untouchable as the Dutch driver. If the name sounds familiar, well, he's been a commentator here at RCI for the past year or two. A gifted broadcaster in his own right, but we're going to have to add LMU race winner to his resume as well here if he can keep this up for another 4.5 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. When he came in earlier and he spoke to us, he sounded confident, but I didn't know how confident he was. You know what I mean? Like I feel like he let us down a bit of a false pretense, like he was enjoying himself. But we see Nicholas Keller the wrong way
Now,
on the racetrack.
well, you don't get into that wall unless you're turned. That's getting into Coca-Cola curve, or before it rather.
Oh.
Well, the reason he's spinning is because he's driving the. You will have to forgive us. That is the new Total Energies Total Energies Peugeot. But it looks like the old one because it's missing the wing. It should have the wing. It's driving like the old version without the wing. But Nicholas Keller's going to have to bring that car into the pit lane, just undrivable without the rear wing. The question remains, how did he get into that state with the wing missing? Maybe Keller will tell us.
And maybe there was someone else on the track that they had an instance together, like you say. To be that fast may mean that there was contact with another car.
Certainly been the most competitive race of the season thus far. We've had 2 or 3 leaders in the hypercar class. We've only had the 1 leader in LMGT3, but it's been very close. No more than 3 seconds the gap between the top 2 for the majority of the race in that category. Van Zutphen's just done such a good job of leading the group that it has been a non-issue for the Dutchman. And for Barnabas Fezkes in the 94 Peugeot Total Energies car, it's looking like victory for them. It's not the slimmest margin because that will be Bahrain after the near disaster that was attempting to cross the line with no time left. Didn't go to plan, gave up a more than a 10-second lead there. Did the leader? Beniers makes no difference. Fezkes is taking control of this race. Looks like they're driving into first place and could be fighting for the championship before it's all said and done.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we see Nick Cooper, who had issues earlier, on the track sideways.
Oh, you worry, has it happened again? Have they had an additional sort of freeze, and that's led them into the position that they're in? You'd hate for that to be the case, but if it's happened once, what are the chances of it happening again?
Yeah, absolutely, Jesse. It can definitely happen again. Hopefully this time he didn't touch the barrier. I didn't quite see if he'd gone that far. Andy's just come in and confirmed that it was again another game freeze. Yeah,
and that's what you worry about. That's what you think about whenever you're having some sort of mechanical issue. I'm using air quotes here, people. You worry, okay, well, if it's happened once, will it happen again? I'm not particularly familiar with that. I've had that happen in ACC, though, where I'm sure Ted can commiserate, where the sim freezes and your feedback goes completely stiff, and then you come back and you're crashed. And it's a very similar feeling. And it can happen in iRacing too, now that I think about it. But it's actually worse than iRacing because of the way the feedback is represented. But either way, that's what I'm assuming is happening to Cooper. And it happens to you once and you get away with it sometimes and you go, oh God, please don't do that again. And unfortunately, it happens again a lot of the time. Nearly made it, though. All credit to Cooper. Maybe Spirit of the Race Award for Cooper today.
Yeah,
Shout
absolutely.
out to Andy for giving us updates there. For Barnabas Fezkes, it's been just about a perfect day. They waited in the wings. They didn't put a foot wrong, and they're going to put the 94 Peugeot in victory lane. Barnabas Fezkes wins round number 3 here at Fuji.
Yeah, fantastic drive from Fezkes. just kept it out there, kept it clean. Obviously had other people in front, but you know, it's just that consistency that managed to get him the win. So well done to Face Kiss for today's race win.
Kapslar P2 in a Ferrari with Pettick in third. Pettick will wonder what might have been. Still a podium, though. 2 Ferraris on it as well. Footy Brecha battled all day. Will get credit for fourth. Dries in fifth. Roche, Rodriguez, Kierton, the lot of them. But what about Dan Van Zutphen, the Dutchman, on pole? Mid-season sign up and is going to go to victory in LMGT3 in Fuji. Look at this. Just an absolutely brilliant display. Klaus Nyring in the 155 will come home in P2. Started up in the top 3, will end up being rewarded with P2. Lindner in third place. Pretty good for the United Auto Sports number 95 McLaren. They got to be pretty happy with that one. Another car that had a quiet day, in fact. Final cars coming across the line. Vic Verstappen. Christoph Verstappen, this will be the first race he hasn't finished on the podium this season, and that's going to have huge championship implications. It's going to be 5th for the number 59 McLaren today. The second pit stop being their undoing. It looking like a third P2 in a row wasn't to be.
No, absolutely. Definitely had some issues today, or something that went on with that pit stop which caused them to lose out on that podium finish.
Here are your unofficial results from round 3 here at the LMU Sprint Championship on RCI TV at Fuji. Barnabas Facekiss wins it 40 laps total. You love a nice round number. Adam Kapslar P2, 8.6 seconds back. A pretty decent gap between the two of them. 3 different leaders in the hypercar class today. Very much in doubt throughout the entirety. David Pettick in third. Philippe Brecha and Zeno Dries, your top 5. Peter Roche, Michel Rodriguez, Louis Kierton, Nico Kuzma, and Mikel Ramos, your top 10. Worth mentioning all those cars on the lead lap as well. Maciej Sirik in 11th place. Gottschalk, who had a less than stellar race today. Nick Cooper, who wins the Spirit of the Race award, went down a lap or 2 early. A couple of screen freezes kept going. Miguel Martins, who was doing his very best crab rave impression today, in 14th. Nicholas Keller DNF'd near the end, of course, without the rear wing on the Peugeot. As we all know, a Peugeot with no rear wing isn't very good. Shikajev and Fonza, the other 2 cars that DNF'd in hypercar. LMGT3, Dan Van Zutphen got the pole and led the entire way. 9 seconds the gap. Doesn't tell just how close it was. Van Zutphen eating up the pressure today. Klaus Nyring was everywhere, it seemed like. Eventually made their way back to second in the 155 Ferrari. Lindner in third place in the 95. Patience and perseverance for that driver gets them a wonderful podium spot. Phil Vick, Christoph Verstappen round out your top 5. Piero Cini in the Corvette after their up and down day ended up with 6th place. Lily Armstrong in 7th. Ryan Gill 8th. David Beckett did finish in the in the second 31 car. Ellis Buckley, the lone retirement out of LMGT3. While we try to wrangle some drivers for some interviews, just want to go ahead and shout out all of our lovely partners that make this race and every race possible. You've seen them revolving around the top right and the bottom left corner of the screen all day, but AK Esports, for all they do for us for hosting our series and events. Coach Dave Delta and the Coach Dave Academy, you can get setups for iRacing, ACC, and LMU. by clicking the link in the description. I'd be surprised if there wasn't a couple of Coach Dave setups in the race today. Green Man Gaming, get yourself a deal on the hottest new releases. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 just came out recently, I'm pretty sure, as well as a host of other games. Rave reviews for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I played the first one. It's the only game, raving review from Jesse Lee. It's the only game that made me feel like I was in sort of the middle of Europe in the 1400s. Like, and that, you know what I mean? It's just, that's what the game is, but even still, pretty great. Go to Green Man Gaming, use our link. It lets them know that we sent you. We appreciate it. And of course, Moser Racing for their support. You can check out Moser Racing, get yourself a wheelbase and bundle over at Moser Racing. IMB Racewear as well. While you're at it, you're upgrading the rig, get a pair of gloves. They're nice, by the way. IMB Racewear, also in the description. And of course, Motorsport UK. Thank them so much. We are a recommended e-sport community. Well, we have been joined by Don Van Zutphen, who, on the surface, Don, first of all, congratulations. It looked very calm and collected today, but you had your work cut out for you. You had a couple of hard challengers behind you. Professional broadcaster Dan Van Zutphen, by the way, with his mic turned off. We'll see if he can't sort himself out. In the meantime, Kevin Boss has joined us.
Hello,
Kevin Boss. Do you have an announcement?
Well, I don't know whether you got to the results from Split 2 yet.
Oh, sure. You know what? Kevin. Okay. We're gonna go back to Kevin Boss.
That, but
I got you. Well, I did that. Unfortunately, I wasn't really paying attention. I do apologize. We'll go to Kevin Boss in a minute. From one Dutchman to another, Don Van Zutphen, winner in LMGT3 today. I'll repeat my question. Don, first of all, congratulations on what was a fantastic race. My question, though, is you seem pressured all day. What was it like from your perspective leading this thing?
Well, first of all, thanks for Nyling making the quali so competitive and the race too. I don't know what happened to Verstappen, but he made it so challenging. I think if it wasn't for the incident that occurred later in that race, I might not have won it. But pressure-wise, I felt a pretty big pressure. Didn't expect to put it on pole. Did not expect to lead the entire race. My arch enemy was turn 1 today. I don't know if you've seen it, because I drifted it probably 30 times wide in this race in turn 1. But, you know, the result is P1. I can't really complain.
Dan, we talked about you being a very fantastic broadcaster and everything.
Oh, thank you, Jesse.
You're also a great racer. You're potent in any sim you seem to get into. What do you attribute that to? Why are you just instantly on pace, it seems like?
Very good question. And I honestly have, well, I do have an idea. It's probably dedication and trust in yourself as well throughout the years. Of course, I started in Gran Turismo. That made the switch to PC to Assetto Corsa Competizione. Learned a lot there, learned a lot in iRacing as well. And I think it's a combination of those to just, step in so many sims time and time again. Last weekend, I did the 24 hours of Daytona in iRacing. And it's just the overall experience and getting used to a lot of different cars and games that made it work. And Le Mans Ultimate is probably my favorite sim on the market currently, so that helps too.
You absolutely love to hear that, Don. Before we let you go, one question and then comment. Are you coming back for next week? Or are you going to keep this going?
I'm going to come back next week and see if I can get another P1. Yes.
You're going to love it. Folks, next week we are live from Algarve, otherwise known as Portimao. for round number 4 in the LMU Sprint Series Championship. And finally, Don, anyone you want to shout out, say thanks to out there?
Just my team, Mexico Racing team, and everyone else who supports me, and of course the beautiful broadcasting team, because without you guys, we wouldn't have a stream, and I wouldn't be here right now talking in the stream. So yeah, thank you to RCI in a whole.
Dan van Zutphen absolutely dominated them today. The pole, the win, does it get any sweeter? I don't think it does. Dan van Zutphen, your winner at Fuji. Well, from your winner in LMGT3 to the results of split number 2. And we'll start with the hypercar class. And hold on, I've got to make a phone call really quickly. Yes, hello, Satan? Is the air conditioner running? No, hell is not frozen over. It is a double Dutchman Friday. Kevin Boss has won it in split 2 in the hypercar class over John Becker and Richard Whittle. Nice Reese, Varga, Schubern, and Whittle. Keith Whittle, that is. The top 12 in the hypercar class. We welcome in the other Dutchman, Kevin Boss. Kevin Boss, first of all, congratulations on a brilliant victory in the hypercar class. How'd you put it together today?
Thank you, Jesse. It was a tough fight and also a bit of luck because I need to be honest. Peter Varga, he had some crazy pace today. He outqualified me by 8/10, and I was P2. Also in the race, most of the time he was like 8 seconds up the road, but yeah, one mistake. I just keep on fighting forwards and yeah, able to take the lead. Did make a mistake later, but lucky for me, Becker had accidentally left his tire chains on and switched to wet sweep, which he had prepared earlier. So even though we didn't have rain, I got lucky with that because I was able to overtake him in the pits and then yeah, was able to sail on to glory.
Is absolutely brilliant. There's very few times where I got to go back and watch the VOD from somebody's perspective, but this is one of them. You can find Kevin Boss over at Crash Neck on Twitch, all one word, Crash Neck. And well, you didn't crash today. I got to tell you, that had to have been one of the drives of all time. Where does this rank for you, though, in your hierarchy of success in sim racing?
I mean, it was a good fight all throughout because Becker, yeah, just kept the pressure on the entire race. I had no point. It was only after the pit stops when I was able to have a little bit of a break. So yeah, with the hard work, this one raced rather high. I don't know if it's my best win, but yeah, this one's really high because it did need a few mistakes from others that were worse than my mistakes because I did have a little drift into turn 1 at one point and a Spinala in sector 3. So yeah, I just needed a little bit of luck today, but yeah, still all counted very high.
Well, we're very proud of you. By the way, folks, I just want to point something out. This is the first time Kevin Boss was a commentator here before he was an event manager or steward or any of that. Dan van Zutphen was a broadcaster or a commentator here before, well, he was a racer and a part-time steward as well. This is the first time. We're 5-some years in to RCI. This is the first time it's happened with stewarding. It's happened with event management. I believe it's happened with admins as well. This is the first time that we've got 2 winners on the same day in the broadcast team, and they're both Dutch.
It's a miracle.
It's a double Dutch day out here at RCI. Congratulations, Kevin Boss. Anybody you want to shout out, please shout out the team.
Yeah, I want to thank Tom Watts, Callum Kerrigan, and Scott Lawson, who I was in the chat with today in Vulcan Racing, especially after my spin. Like, they kept pushing me on to, try and get it. And then, yeah, I don't think, maybe without them, I wouldn't have had the focus to keep pushing for those last couple of laps. So, yeah, big thank you to them.
Absolutely brilliant. Kevin Boss wins it in split 2 in the hypercar class. A big shout out to Wheelie Slow. and Kevin Boss for providing our final results in Split 2 as well. You saw it earlier, but I'll go over it in the LMGT3 field in Split 2. Rob Franken wins it for the number 31 BMW team over Tom Watson, Callum Kerrigan. That's an RCI 123 over there. That's happened a few times. Not very often, though. Scott Lawson in fourth place in that category as well. Well, Dan Van Zutphen, Kevin Boss winning it in different splits here today. A brilliant race, all things considered. Katrina, where do we go from here? It was a lot cleaner of a race, a lot less drama-filled, but more passes for the lead than we expected. We're going to Portimao. What's next?
Yeah, Jesse, like you say, it was a very interesting race today. We saw lots of people contending for the podium positions, which is always good and fun and lovely to watch. Hopefully next week we have the same. I just want to see more racing, more people fighting for the top spots.
Well, there you have it. One more piece of business before we go off air tonight. We've got the championship standings as of today. Well, actually, before today's race, just for the sake of showing you what Split 2 championship looks like. This is prior to today's race, but John Becker leads it in the Cadillac. We knew that a Cadillac had to be somewhere represented in the series, and it is in Split 2. Becker was leading coming into today over Peter Varga, Phil Malter third, Davis, Keith Whittle, Richard with the Whittles together. You love to see it. The family that races together shares points together, apparently. Nice, Boss, who will go up quite a lot after today's victory, you'd have to imagine. Sherburne, Reese, I believe that's Rob Franken, actually, the next one in the list there. That's not Rob Franken. I can't quite make out who that is. Osmarov and Matus, 13 cars in the hypercar class. There might be more on a separate page. Nope, there are not. GT LM3, Tom Watts came into today leading it in Split 2 over Matthias, and Mulk in third. Callum Kerrigan, Daniel Durrett make up the rest of the top five. Rob Franken's going to shoot up the list after his victory today. He might be as high as third place after that one. Matthew Webb in seventh. Lawson, Yaroslav, McGonigal, and Mulder, 11 cars in LMGT3 in Split 2. Once again, bear in mind this is prior to today's race taking place. We'll have all the updates coming for you next week as we are going to Portugal, Portimao, for round number 4. And time will only tell, as nobody has taken control of the championship in any category thus far, according to the standings. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'd love to have you there. A couple of things to be reminded of course. There is no night owl this week. Excuse me, I can't do the voice today, but there is no night owl this particular week. Off next week, though, they will be going to Spain, racing at Barcelona before they finish up in Watkins Glen in 2 weeks' time from now. Of course, the Monday Deutschland Masters Championship continuing, home stretch Suzuka and the Nürburgring Nordschleife, the final 2 rounds that coming at you in our next broadcast here on RCI TV on Monday. Of course, also this weekend, the wrap-up of the IMB 6-hour community series, Spa-Francorchamps for the community series, and in 1 week's time, the esports series races their final race at Barcelona. Other things coming up on the calendar, the IMSA Endurance Series, newly announced over on iRacing. Get some friends. You can do it solo if you want as well, but races of various lengths, 6, 4, 3, 2, all the number hours. All of them in the United States. Starts in Sebring, then Daytona, Laguna Seca, Watkins Glen, Road America, Indianapolis. I'm assuming the road course. God, I hope the road course. And Road Atlanta, making up the IMSA calendar there. That series starting on March the 1st. You can sign up for it right now. And the iRacing Sebring 6 hours as well. That race, that's interesting. It says the signups are open, but it also says it's not. Oh, signups are open till. Sorry, I'm not wearing my glasses. The iRacing Sebring 6-hour race also up as a one-off for iRacing. More things to come in the near future will be announced in the upcoming weeks. Whatever it is, LMU, ACC, or iRacing, whatever your poison, we've got your racing. RaceRCI.com. Join us. We'd love to have you on the track. Katrina, final words from you today.
Well, what a race that's been, Jesse, to be honest. That's my final words, really. Looking forward to seeing what everybody comes back with next week, and maybe we'll see some weather changes.
Definitely got cloudy here in Japan today, but no rain for us. That didn't keep some of the cars from slipping off of the racetrack. Portimao in 1 week's time. Next broadcast, Deutschland Masters on ACC on Monday. We thank you all very much for being with us, and we hope that you've enjoyed today's broadcast. On behalf of the entire team here at RCI, I've been Jesse Lee, joined by Katrina and Ted Edwards, bringing you the pictures of the race today. Shout out to the Double Dutch pair winning it in different splits today. Good on them. Will they keep it up in 1 week's time? Only time will tell. Thank you all for watching. And until next week, have a good night.